It's the thing, right? So, somehow that used to be up this high. Oh my, you're beautiful. Autumn is here. That rain. Wow. Yes, Gary pointed out to me as I came over, he got thoroughly washed last night. It's just an amazing process. You know, I never get over the seasons. The shifting from one thing that seems so full and here and the only way things could ever be into something else entirely. It's just gorgeous. The last couple of weeks I've done a lot of driving around the state. I went up to the Portland area Wednesday before last, and then down to the Rogue River area this last Thursday, Friday, and then of course up and down the coast as usual. And it's been beautiful to watch this very slow unfolding of the autumn. Yes? Mm-hmm. Can I move this a little better? There we go. So, and there's news reports that this is all over. This is happening all over. That Sue was sharing that in Arizona, what is normally brilliant color wasn't when she was there, and the folks in Maine and New Hampshire are finding that the red color is less intense but dragging out over several more weeks, and it's related to global climate change, but it's also related to us. What are we thinking and feeling? What is our way of relating to the universe? What is it that we are being in our consciousness? Because we must experience out there what is going on in here. Both the beauty and the change and even the distress. All of that is a reflection, is something that we can only perceive because of who and what our mental framework is. Because that is what defines what we can perceive. So if we want to start experiencing something different out there, we have to start changing that mental framework. Within that context, I'd like to offer a different way of looking at what's going on in the world that has to do with the long view of history. Okay? Most of us were raised in a situation, a set of understandings about the world and about the seasons that basically starts in Europe at about 1500. And none of that is actually based in anything real. So the first thing I'd like to suggest is that awareness of the seasons is as old as humanity, right? As soon as one becomes aware that these things are changing and that one has to prepare for and that one has to wrap up from, complete one and prepare for the upcoming. And that way of thinking and feeling and being is deeply woven as that reading. What a beautiful reading, thank you. As that reading was reminding us, that's deeply woven and cannot be unwoven from who and what we are. So that awareness of the changing of the seasons. And the essence of this particular season as we move through autumn is the appearance of death. The appearance of death in the temperate climates wherever you have autumn, as opposed to the parts of the world where it's either raining or not raining. Those are the two seasons, right? But where we have autumn, it looks as if everything is dying. And as you're walking on trails or in neighborhoods where they have trees, and the trees have leaves that fall. When I was in the Portland area, I was in one of those neighborhoods that have all these brilliant maples and oaks, and all the leaves are beginning to fall, and people are walking through the snowfall, if you will, of leaves. And after a while you can smell the leaves beginning to crumble and decay, and that's a unique scent for fall, right? You don't have that in the summer. You have a different one in the summer, a different one in the spring. And so you can, it's all the senses are being, prevailed to experience this thing that some things appear to come to something called death. And I think that really is the reason that in the ancient Celtic tradition, the statement was made that the veil is thinning at this time of year, that it's thinner than at other times. It's that our awareness of the possibilities is more open, and because our awareness is more alive, more functioning, that it feels as if the difference between being in the body and not in the body is less distinct, shall we say. So we're feeling this as the season changes. We've completed the harvest. This is the end of, there's almost nothing left out there to pick. I found a blackberry last week. One last blackberry, you know. All the rest are pretty much done.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And there are a few last apples hanging on a few trees, right? And a few last nuts that didn't quite get harvested and all that kind of thing. So really the harvest is essentially done. You can glean now, but you can't harvest. And all the things that were keeping us outdoors are beginning to not be possible, and all that stuff. A way of being has ended, and now we're going inside. Now we're going into the inner space, in the inner experience. And in a lot of people's lives, that's a scary thing. One of the things that I was told when I was growing up was that I might look like a nice little kid, but inside me was a horrible being.
Oh.
That was hard. It made it very hard for me when I look inside, right? It was not a fun way to think about oneself. And I was in my 30s before I got the breakthrough to go, oh my goodness, no matter what I have thought about myself, at the core of me and every being is light. So I'm just going to slip past all that yucky stuff to the light. And then I could let that light begin to expand and begin to work through me. But if that was the message that I was given, imagine what the message the person who gave it to me had been given. And imagine what they thought about every other being on the planet. Oh my goodness. Wow. It can be very scary to think, if that's what you think, it can be very scary to consider what someone's soul or spirit really is. Wow. So we have this thing going on where people are sort of afraid of their inner being, and they're definitely afraid of those others out there. And oh my goodness, if it's something that's on the other side of the veil that isn't even in human form, that really has to be scary, right? And so what has happened in our culture over several hundred years, and it's really only been several hundred years, what was understood as a day of honoring and celebration of those who have gone before and helped us see what we need to be and do and what we can be and what our potential is, became an opportunity to celebrate scariness. Isn't that interesting? So I think it's very interesting also that we have this fun language. We have this language, Halloween. Halloween is all about scariness, right? Yeah. Yeah, but all the people who say that also repeat a certain prayer at least once a week, most of them, and some of them almost every day, in which that same word is used. Hallowed be thy name is the second line. And they never connect Halloween with hallowed. So, language, I love language. And if we look at this language thing around Hallow, what we see is it's the eve, like Christmas Eve. It's All Hallows Eve. It's the night before All Hallows Day. The day of all that is hallowed, all that is holy, All Saints Day. All right? So it has nothing to do with scariness. It has to do with the night before it's All Saints. Now, I do have to say that I always think of the Fantasia Magorsky's Night on Bald Mountain whenever I think of Halloween, right? And here's the mountain, and it's the devil, and the devil is calling forth all the spirits out of the land and out of the graves. and it's amazing. And it goes on all night, and the music is fabulous. And then there's a ray of light, and the dog goes, oh, and he's afraid of the light. And he tucks himself down into the mountain, and all of the spirits fall back into the ground, and we hear a transition into Ave Maria as the saints emerge and go into the chapel.
I'm going to get that piece.
It is wonderful. I keep a copy of Fantasia around mostly for that one. Yes.
The sacred and the profane, that's what it's called.
So, All Saints' Day, November 1. I happened to land in Paris, France that day one day. I don't recommend it. There's nothing open.
That's scary.
All Saints' Day. In the Roman tradition, this is one of the most important feast days, like Christmas. This is a really important day. This is the day we honor not only all the people who have been declared and canonized as saints, but we're honoring all those who have gone before and made that commitment and moved through the process to be reunited with the divine. The Roman Church chose November 1 as All Saints' Day because the Celtic people were already celebrating All Souls' Day during Samhain, S-A-M-H-A-I-N, and some people call it Samhain, because that is the season that is the midpoint between the fall equinox and the winter solstice. So the full moon that's halfway between is that time when all of these things that we're experiencing in the world around us is happening, and the veil is thinnest. That is, we are most aware of our connection with all those who have passed on before us and are available to us at any time if we allow it, if we're willing to experience that. In the Celtic tradition, you know, it's fascinating because we keep anthropologists and archaeologists through the 1900s kept bringing their Christian ideas and their English, mostly English Christian ideas to everything they looked at, right? So they would walk into, they would discover, say in England, a bara, or in Italy they would discover one of these underground complexes, and they would see skulls. And they would say, oh, this is a tomb of a very important person, right? Well, the more study we do, the more we find that it was the place where women went and honored those that they honored the earth and they honored the connection with the earth, and they kept a skull of each of the people that they revered from the past. All right? So you can see this over and over again. Again, this is a very different look at archaeology. When women started becoming archaeologists, we started getting some different answers. It was kind of interesting. And I'm using that word a lot today. But Maria Gumbutas is one of the people who's published these kinds of things. You know, she's the one who made the little Venus figurines famous and pointed out that, you know, there was a time when all divinity looked like grandmothers. If you looked at the Venus figures, you'll see a lot of middle-aged women's bodies.
And all their fullness.
Yeah, fullness, sometimes skinniness, sometimes but we all have those odd, weird things that middle-aged women's bodies get to. So, yeah, so what we're seeing is there was a long tradition of connecting with the earth by going down into the earth and feeling the womb of the mother and bringing those memories that were important to us, and sometimes making a record of it on the wall, but mostly bringing a few things, a piece of pottery or jewelry, or the skull of a person that was cared for. The ancient Celtic traditions were in place long before the Romans arrived, and the Romans arrived and tried to impose Roman theology on them, and that didn't work. And so Constantine said, well, I'm not going to be on the Temple of Jupiter anymore, the emperor had to be the head of the temple of Jupiter. So I'm going to find this something that will replace me. And he put a bunch of Christian bishops in the temple of Jupiter, and we call it the Vatican today. And so when he did that, what he was doing was saying, you guys, you're going to keep this empire together, because I can't do it anymore. I can't do it with the army. So we're going to send out missionaries to all of the provinces, and they're going to hold together the empire. And we are still living in the last remnants of that period. It's an amazing way to look at the world. And when you see all of these Roman holidays, the Catholic holidays, Catholic meaning universal, the holiday, the holy days are days that were adopted and adapted from what was already in place in the provinces. That was St. Augustine's suggestion, by the way. Don't try to fight what they're doing, just adopt it and adapt it. We can make it work. And so Samhain, or Samhain, was one of those days. It was when we honored all the people of the provinces of Europe. Already were honoring those who had passed on during the season when the world seems to be going into death and decay. Oh. All right, so the Romans said, well, we can't be honoring everybody, so we'll honor the saints. And so that became All Saints' Day. But then the local folks said, oh, no, we have to honor everyone. So November 2 is All Souls' Day. And that's why in Mexico, it's November 2, right, is La Dia de los Muertos, right? So on All Saints, All Souls' Day, they're there in the cemeteries honoring and celebrating all the people that have gone on before. And in fact are eating with the folks who have gone on before. They have feasts and picnics and invite the folks who are living in the cemeteries to come and join them. Isn't it nice? What a healthy way to deal with what in our culture has been, don't deal with it. It's not real. It can't be real. I'm not going to let it be real. Don't let it be real. Okay. Ah, yes. Yes. So, we want to recognize, as that reading suggested, that we cannot break the links. We cannot unbraid what has been braided. That was a great line. Right? It's very much a part of who we are. It's part of that mental framework. So rather than be stuck in a dissonance that says, the culture says I can't look at it, but I really want to look at it, let's let go of what the culture has trained us to do. And let's honor all those who have gone before us, who have loved us and whom we have loved, who have touched our hearts and touched our lives and souls in some deep way. Sometimes it may just have been a lunch sometime, or some small way, but it may have been years and years and years of tangled, weaving experience, yes? And sometimes it didn't feel very loving while it was happening. And yet, every single human interaction, we need to remember, is saying, I love you, please love me. Every single one. Even that, I know. She said, Marcia says, but what about shooting people? I had to really come to terms with this because I grew up with an abusive parent who'd been abused for generations, yeah. And I had to come to terms with that moment where I'm on the floor being kicked and realize that what was being said is, I love you. Please love me. I'm not seeing the love. Please love me. And in that moment, when I got that that's what was being said, the only way that person could do it in that moment, the only expression that person was capable of in that moment, oh my goodness, so much weight off. Hate is love inverted. We're trying to love and we can't. We can't find it. We want to feel loved. And it comes out too often looking like anger and hatred. if we can learn to see that and know that, then we can do something that I heard yesterday. We can take every single situation that has been so much pain in our memory and we can throw love at it. Alright? Throw love at it. And we can do that in this space and time. And we can do that for all space and time. Because truly, even though it looks as if who I am is stuck in this brain, in this body, here and now, who each and every one of us is outside of space and time, in our true beingness. And we're kind of hanging out in this play, if you will, this drama, this something, this set of experiences for the experience of it. And we really came here to love and be loved, and to extend and expand lovingness. That's what we came here to do. And that's part of why we get so frustrated and so angry when we're not feeling it. And then we act out in the ways, whatever way we were taught to act out. Ow. That hurts. But we can flow through it. And so there are some beautiful pictures on here, and someone even put a pair of Siamese cats, and I have a feeling they're also for next week. But all of these wonderful beings on this altar, represented in all these wonderful ways, are people whose lives have been intertwined with people in this group. And what's interesting is because we are intertwined in this group, in this community, these lives affect each of us, each and every one of us. And ultimately, every life that has ever been lived affects each and every one of us. Oh, wow. Can I open myself to that? Can I allow myself to experience that all that humanity has ever been, in all its forms, shapes, sizes, and ethnicities, touches me, helps to shape me, invites me to become more than I have been, invites me to see the love that has been expressed and experienced in all of their beingness. Now, some of you have done past life regression. I've done a few. And I can, step into probably, if I were to add them up, several hundred lifetimes. Now, I'm not sure that that's a linear progression, but they're all different spaces and times in human experience, that if I allow myself, I can go into there and I can be in a hovel in the steppes. I can be in a lodge down here off of the Road River. I can be in another lodge up around Victoria, BC. I can be a knight. I have a very vivid experience of that, who went into a monastery and did everything that he could to never have there be war again. We can all tap into lives at different times and places and feel what that was like and connect with that. Because that's part of being human too. And that's part of what remembering those who have touched our lives in the physical in this lifetime helps us to remember we are always connected. And we always have access to that connection. The veil seems thin this time of year because the world is reminding us that there is the appearance of death, but that appearance is holding more life.
Mm-hmm.
Only as the leaves dry and rot and turn into compost on the soil, that the seeds below the soil receive what they need to become the green and the blossoms of the summer. only as we allow the past to dissolve and no longer drive us, but to be honored and appreciated for how it contributes to who we are becoming, do we earn and grow and become the lesson of Samhain, of All Saints and All Souls Day. Thank you very much.